Okay, maybe I'm just stupid, and I know some of you will turn around and say that's the case, but what the hell is it about a nation that was actually founded on the desire for religious freedom to be so easily manipulated and incited into not only condoning and supporting the killing of innocent people, but actually wanting it. I mean, literally cheering it on. What the hell is it about people in this country that have allowed themselves to be incited by government and other countries referring to a people as an extreme religion to justify 6 days of nonstop killing of innocent people, to retaliate for unspeakable crimes committed by a few? What is it about people in the United States that can actually go on social media and make statements that Palestinians deserve to die, they all are extreme jihadist Muslims, or they all support Hamas, when that cannot even be close to the truth? You know, we have been told for generations now that this conflict between Israel and Palestinians and Arabs is a holy war. It is because of religious differences. Well, you know, I hate to tell you this, but we've been lied to for generations. Before you start condoning the killing of children and innocent people who are doing nothing but trying to survive the best that they can, in a situation that, contrary to what a lot of you may think, is quite similar to something that we in this country have done before, and quite similar to something that is currently taking place in this country. Rather than believe the lies that have been repeated over and over in order to make us believe that, you know, this conflict is over religion, why not take a few minutes and actually put aside what you were taught in school, put aside what every government has told you, and actually do some research? You know, people have repeatedly commented to me on X, name when Palestine was ever a state, or the Palestinian people ever had their own country. And I did. And interestingly enough, the state of Palestine was formed, interestingly enough, with the injection of the United States, along with a host of other countries, including Great Britain, in World War I. And yes, the entire area that is known as Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza today was in fact, in the early 1900s, at the end of the Ottoman rule in World War I, was mandatorily designated as Palestine. It was designated by authority of Britain, who was given the authority to actually divide up the area, by allied nations from World War I, which included the United States, Great Britain, Italy, Japan, France. You know, the same, interestingly enough, the same freaking countries that always seem to be injecting themselves and their politics into every other country and dictating who is right and who is wrong, or who's moral and who's not. You know, if you stop long enough and do the research, you will find that this conflict actually is not religious based, as everyone has been led to believe for generations, but actually came about over Britain's public commitment and announcement that they intended to make a Jewish homeland out of what was designated as mandatory Palestine. And in doing so, they not only created conflict with Palestinians and Arabs that were already living in the land, but they slowly began an immigration process where Britain was actually migrating Jewish people into Palestine in certain numbers over the years. And the more that they immigrated in, the more that there was conflict over who had rights to the land, who didn't. And again, it wasn't religious based as much as it was people uprooting other people. So, interestingly enough, after the migration and the immigration of a certain number of Jewish settlers by Britain, there was a revolt. And there was a British paper called the White Paper that was written. And it was in what, the 1930s, mid to late 1930s when this was written. Because the number of Jewish migrants that were being immigrated into the area for settlement, for forming a Jewish homeland, had increased to the point to where, you know, people started pushing other people out. And Great Britain at the time decided that they were going to now limit and slow the number of migrants that were immigrated into the territory, into the area. And when the British government announced that, there was a Jewish leader who had decided that that was unacceptable and actually formed an illegal immigration network that continued to immigrate Jewish citizens into what was considered mandatory Palestine. So rather than everybody saying, oh, this is about extreme Muslim religious beliefs or a conflict between Jewish and Muslim beliefs, no, it was not. I mean, there probably are a lot of religious differences, but guess what? There was a time when people in this country thought Catholicism was an extreme religion. I mean, I understand that everybody wants to take a side, but how many years, how many generations, how many decades of people have to be murdered on both sides? When did it become moral, even for us, to support and accept an entire people being forced into a confined area encircled by walls, fences, with locked gates and armed guards patrolling it 24/7. That's not a free people. And I don't care how you justify it or how you try to justify it, you can't. Since when did having 2 million individuals in a 140 square mile area, closed off by walls, fences, armed guards, and locked gates, and another country control the access to food, water, fuel, electricity, medication, travel? Since when did that become acceptable in any humane society? And yet we've allowed it to not only take place, but we've actually endorsed it. We've supported it. We have sent billions of dollars to Israel to allow the Palestinian people to be confined in a very small area of a land that, yes, regardless of how many times you tell me it wasn't, it was indeed designated as theirs. And this very country had a hand in doing that. And for this country for generations to lie and misrepresent and misinform and miseducate people about that by calling this a religious holy war and a religious conflict, and people not willing to be tolerant of other religions, is not only unacceptable. I think we as a nation deserve some answers and some accountability. Look, what Hamas did a week ago is unjustifiable. It's not, nobody in their right mind can defend any of it. But on the same token, what Israel has done in the past week, day after day, if you have any moral ground whatsoever, or moral integrity of any kind, if you have any true humanity at all, you can't justify and support that either. Because killing of people who had absolutely nothing to do with what took place last Saturday is no different than what Hamas and those who crossed that border last Saturday did in Israel. I'm not asking people to take sides. In fact, I think if people really wanted to find a solution and a way to stop the unnecessary killing of other human beings, you wouldn't take a side. Instead, you would actually get the facts and then start looking at a way to hold everybody to the same standard and everybody to account for their actions, and start acknowledging the fact that, you know what was done to the Palestinian people by Israel was done to the Native Americans in this country by us. Whether you want to admit it or not, it is exactly the same thing. The only difference is the U.S. government sent Native Americans into land that they basically would struggle on to survive. And while it didn't have fences and walls and armed guards, they damn sure didn't have access to the same services that the rest of us and the rest of the nation had at the time. And to this day, a lot of them still don't. Interestingly enough, what took place between Israel and Palestine that has continued this conflict for generations now, Americans are actually screaming bloody murder because of the influx of illegal immigration coming across the US-Mexico border today. So let me ask all of you who are saying it's okay to kill innocent Palestinians because they support Hamas. And if they don't support Hamas, they will. And if they won't, they're still extreme Muslim extremists. Which, sadly, a country that was founded on religious freedom has been so easily incited to want to justify the murder of people based on what you believe their religious beliefs to be. And I'm talking about the people. I'm not talking about the terrorists. I'm not talking about Hamas. I'm not talking about ISIS. I'm not talking about those who use a religion to justify murdering people and terrorizing. Okay? There's a very big difference. But imagine this. Imagine with the constant influx of migration entering the U.S. illegally, that currently hundreds of thousands are being released into the streets, pretty much no questions asked. So, what would you think if, after a certain amount of immigration by illegal means, entered the U.S., and then suddenly you have this huge population of people from other countries who decide, you know what, I don't want you here. In fact, I want this all for us. And they want to start to push you out. Are you going to say that it's justifiable? Are you going to say that it's okay? Because if you tell me no to that, which I guarantee you that's exactly what you're going to tell me, then you have to understand that you're saying it was okay for Israel to do that to Palestinians was wrong to begin with as well. So everybody really does need to take a step back. You need to stop condoning and supporting and actually encouraging the murder of innocent people because you have been lied to for generations. You need to take a step back and stop saying that you want the Israeli army to kill Palestinians because they're just nasty, evil people, because they're extremist, Islamist extremists, with absolutely no basis, in fact, to even make that statement. Or to say they all support Hamas. Have you ever thought that maybe, rather than 2 million people in a 140 square mile area confined by walls and armed guards and locked gates, maybe instead of them actually supporting Hamas, have you ever thought that maybe they were more concerned in doing what they needed to do to survive and allow their families to survive, even though the quality of life of their survival probably is not much better at this point? But have you ever considered that? I mean, hell, it's no different than areas in Mexico that have massive, and I mean this, there are areas in Mexico that are overrun by cartels. Villages, pueblos, towns. And are you going to tell me that the citizens that live in those villages and those towns and those pueblos are all supporters and members of the cartel? I can assure you they're not. But I can assure you at the same time, they know that they don't have any support or defense or protection from anyone. So they're not exactly going to jeopardize their livelihoods, their lives, their survival, their children's lives. because you or me or anyone else thinks that they should, or else be considered part of the problem. Man, I just don't understand how people in this country have gotten to the point to where you can literally use religion to justify your support and calling for innocent people to be murdered. I just don't get it. And this is not a Jew versus Palestinian, Palestinian versus Jew thing. This is just a fact check and a reality. And as long as everybody continues to play the false narrative that has been fed for generations, that this is nothing more than religious conflict, rather than acknowledge the actual facts of the matter, and the fact that you have one group of people that literally forced another group of people out of their homeland into what does indeed amount to a 140 square mile prison. And I say that because you built a wall around it. You built fences around it. You put locked gates on it, and you patrol it with armed guards and rockets and missiles. And you control every aspect of these people's ability to live. Not to mention any ability, if they have any, to actually make a living. I mean, you can continue to play this game all you guys want. You continue to want to push a narrative, but if you're going to be honest, if you're going to be real, then now's the time, because there's a hell of a lot of innocent people being slaughtered and murdered every single day by Israel, and the world is condoning it and approving of it. And interestingly enough, if this was being done between Russia and Ukraine, you would want to charge every individual that you could identify as involved in it with war crimes. It's no different than what we did when Bosnia went through their ethnic cleansing and genocide. But because it's Israel, and because it's the Palestinian people, that apparently we've all been told for generations are, not worthy of life, it's okay. It's not. And the time has to come where the same standard applies to all.